Hello, Chairman Jordan and Fox News and Connecticut Networks. You guys sought me out to communicate a whole bunch of fake things and fake ties to me, collusions with WFSB in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, CBS affiliate. Is also collusion slash us with and as names also at and next to Fox News, involved with predicate acts with facts methods, all the networks, all the names of the people of the sciences. It's recorded. People say, "Oh, you're making an allegation," and they'll put with that sense and sensibilities. There are proofs they have roles with nuclear, like nuclear energy generation, which inseparable from that is where and how the ground was designed by a breaching method that had roles with torture, extortion, and slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies. But there are proofs. A bunch of people tied to families named Collo and Smith near me were brought up intercities by people from other areas that have roles with untimely deaths on my street and at Trinity College. Now, these are people with interbranch forging and switching names. And WFSB faked conversations with me. They're changing, they're pretending like they don't know too, because it's also recorded. These are people collusion slash S with use slash S of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, intercities and interstates, and internationally. They're demonstrably recorded too, just the way it is in the involvements of it. In the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center attack that morning, the court next to it had collusion from inside the court and names on all sides of that case are increasingly collusion slash S against me, with people sticking fake things and change things and hiding things in databases with a whole bunch of other countries tied to a Ray Collo and his extended family members. A Bob Chase recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that there's a Phil Collo. And I only saw it one time. He non-verbally, the only time I ever saw him, and how they not, it was partially verbally by a person the day before that was swerving a bike on my street, and then he was swerving the bike to show me that he's connected to the person. A Phil Collo has between campuses connected predicate acts and more organized crimes and sexual and medical offenders of kids tied to him. His roles, collusions with them, also with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, in multiple courts, judges and their family members, and prosecutors and their family members with the same house slash S tied to each other. With the Wethersfield Police Department attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and then as an adult. And these are also police forms, families, but also police phones, families. And note the date of 911. In other words, these are a whole bunch of different countries involved. With the kids I went to schools with will tell you this. I never had any problems with anyone. There are people that pretend I have problems behind my back, and they made exceptions. Like some kid, these are increasingly one of the things that ties those people are their roles with people from Russia, Ukraine, and other countries, Korea. Like a Mark Violet has roles with people with the name Violet and Monacchio. I never had a class with Monacchio. In other words, with Anthony Monacchio or his sister. I walked them by them in the cafeteria. Someone told me their name. And they do this to other people. And then they pretend they know people. Other people fake it for them. They have roles interstates with people from Rhode Island. And with roles with the F.B.I, grouping criminal enterprises wrong as collusion. And with the family members of these are people also further all sides of criminal and civil cases and interbranch names, foreign and domestic, how they are shared. They are directed to hide live progressions for how all the countries are shared. That is exploited leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Central Connecticut State University is increasingly now also even with silence. They're influenced to use the right to lie when they don't have the right to lie. And they have collusions with intelligence families at and next to their locations. Their location that is also at and next to campuses intercities. They have connections with the intelligence families next to Trinity College and Harvard and next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain. Also with ones on my street years ago, and increasingly who have roles of wire crime action methods with the Wethersfield Police and digital crimes with them. Also, further with the principal upskirt nature they had roles with, and their roles with the intelligence with Sandy Hook campuses, and their roles with people from Pakistan. For example, these are people that share prisons together. That are roles of all kinds of natures of organized crimes and relative delusions. Psychiatry, the names of the people, the sciences, like American history. They were supposed to not allow anyone to be referred to as our founder, plural, besides James Madison. And we were supposed to note that they had a plural of founders unknown behind him. And that's what enabled them to counter extort everyone at the same time inside more than 13 colonies and force them. The breaching method also forced everyone to hide their actual motivations. Nobody had free speech, and everyone had to pretend other to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sentenced per the torture, extortion, slavery method per worse. In fact, treating nature, therefore, physically against everyone. You guys still have our founders' communications declassified, replaced. You still have uses of use/s, collusion/s, of uses of the words of everyone, even presidents/chiefs. We were not supposed to refer to as the founders. Supposed to know the difference between president/chiefs, though, and how that is Native American, and how nature itself shows us that all Native Americans, their resistance to what is criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer. It wasn't just criminally foreign influence. It was sickly, distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies. Even roles with slavery were only permitted or that body was sentenced. You guys are missing what you guys are also forcing, entertain, replace. Right where you prevent those short words. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB and Rocky Hill. They have a whole bunch of people who will tell you when they ask properly. I had nothing to do with them. They were influenced. People that weren't in my classes at all, and people I put in my classes. There's a consciousness that was to cover up predicate acts with facts that I caught them with, even with proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, and the families who had collusions with the first forced part. So they're making types of crimes, and they have types of experts to counter that. They have collusion/s, keeping a breaching methods rolls with everything out, and rolls with everything through everyone else, including the foreign and domestic. And the same thing is there too. This breaching method is hyper foreign, that which had slavery entrenched even northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. And rather than understand that the way our founders declassified about it, everyone's keeping the breaching method caused and what it did there, its method, blamed on other things, others ourselves, as methods of a method /s, because the standing nature of it is criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments with Boolean logic and exceptions, indifference, appreciation, incapable of defending that and of us at the same time. So mandated law means that there are interbranch locations still faking transcripts in their databases, increasingly with people recorded involved with predicate acts methods /s on my street from other areas, like one's named Violet, sought me out and then made confessions after. I didn't, as communications, no. Then they want to go who said what or what. They're lying about. There are all kinds of communications racketeering that the voices who have been speaking for the sciences that they show. Otherwise, they are sent. They show entertain self-added collusion/s, certain type of child abuse victims, the experts on American history, pretending, replacing what our founders declassified and pretending other, getting away with it by pretending that they believe that George Washington or Thomas Jefferson was one of our founders. And believing in such a way with passions in nature used to prevent any voice from demonstrating. Everyone was counter-extorted with the Constitutional Convention, and one doesn't vote on slavery. That's not really how and why was the states unfolded the way they did. They were and are being counter-extorted. I mean, but now they're no longer being counter-extorted just by our voices when we use James Madison's name. I mean, it's not counter-extortion anymore, though. And the only reason I had to counter-extort everyone is because every difference and every person's difference was applied and there was uses of it, roles only remembered. And then America's founders were born. There were already more than 13 colonies. And again, we don't know who our founders were except for James Madison. This preaching method has people sit here and people say, oh, America's founders owned slaves. Our response was supposed to be that the only name of a founder that we know the name of is James Madison. And he wanted nothing to do with slavery. And his plan, more than anything else, besides maybe the Native Americans, and their means to discern the plan clearer, because they were the last ones to fall to it. But A through Z fell to it. And everyone had fallen from it since before everyone started being identities as modern countries. It was already entrenched, having replaced what would have been the short words, therefore the value of their protraction. At A through Z, everywhere the human species body has a body standing, we are and have been measured by a breaching method. Use /S of our names / name humanity through an as systems tactical ulterior from what it could afford to be appreciated properly, how and why we are an independent species body. And it is simultaneously an identity of unity. And both of those things are forced by that which is generating us, more so than ourselves generating ourselves, and is generating other species bodies. So we can discern this. It is generating all group differences, or we are using or have been using. It will demonstrate the moment we will be using in the future of bridge systems. It will start giving us demonstrations /S, because we are its system, and where and how. It has a special difference here, and we could ignore its system and that special difference, its relativity to how it has a relativity to positive and negative. We're like, for example, yourself is positive and negative simultaneously, where only more positive is being made. But there is this thing called criminal insidiousness. I'm not even a lawyer. There are some things are only positive as criminal insidiousness natures of positive, not really positive. And so, but when we use systems other than its own, it forced space nature transfer. Because nature's nature will only stay increasingly also positive onto itself, no matter what. Otherwise, it will force that from here, where it could make more of itself also further positive onto itself. As force space nature transfer, as leaf of Hadith, as the bottom of the letter Z of English language, rather than the top of the Z, pointing and maintaining our nature here as increasing positive value nature here, evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, especially regarding where and how we are fact treatment nature. Are we equality as fact treatment nature? Please get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. There are 3 branches of government at the same time, further with the state judicial and corrections offices involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and uses of directions to lie. There are proofs that the fire department families got involved with this. With identity theft, fraud, saying is also faked for them. It's nothing personal. I don't even know them. And all kinds of confessions. And like, in other words, they already put all kinds. They can't afford to have what's actually discerned. We have means to discern how all ages and natures of investigators, and conjunctions to themselves, physically and other ways, and conjunctions to that is exploited that way. Increasingly, people next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut, have conjunctions to Route 3 and to that, like the state judicial branch offices, and all along in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and all along Route 3. Collusions/S with people that have been acting online and in life behind people's backs. And online, like even when like trying to make fake exceptions too. The hiding what came first. And people say, oh, Sue, those courts are already collusion/S and with relative delusions. And so that's why we need to have things on paper. Because I'll say of sense and sensibilities in nature as criminal insidiousness as evidence. That's why I get them off the name switching and forging into branch and onto paper. And get me off the fake conversations with WFSB about the World Trade Center attack. And I want a response for what I caught them doing with the principal child abuser that was brought up by me by names of families that had roles interstates. I was next to the World Trade Center attack crime scene right before it. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer next to the World Trade Center. And the night before, I was in a hotel next to it, next to the World Trade Center. Names there next to it. And in the court had a sequence shift for a minute proven afterwards. And names on all sides of that case in the court with the ones in collusions against me, also with other interstates, with other courts and cases. That all sides of criminal and civil cases, when people aren't there, they're putting fake things in databases. Other people saying, "Oh, what that's that." In other words, get them on paper too. These are also ones that had their cousins involved outside my hotel room door of the whole building, not of my actual hotel room door. I never saw anyone in the hallway there. But when the second I was walking out, she was there, and then she made that. In other words, I never had a verbal conversation, at all with a Claudia Scalura. She's involved with a Joe DeMoro and a John DeMoro. John DeMoro has some rape confessions I thought were fake, and because he also has collusion/S with educators I had. And Central Connecticut City University in the Britain confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. It's a Mr. Abruzzi, who was my fifth grade teacher, had repeated fake things behind my back that other people spoke to him. I never had a personal conversation with him. That's one of the things they do. Whether how they have predicate acts with facts, method/S collusion/S recorded, and how they are preventing us from getting, from overcoming violence, and even things like murders would have been prevented. Even the World Trade Center attack had the intelligence followed mandated law like they're supposed to. They're incapable of it because they were child abused. Because I recorded them consciously to an extent, where how good people maintained evil, replacing what nature shows us is proper for the words, for the names of the people, the sciences. But you guys have mass delusions too at the same time. And that's not personal. We have to deal with the actual predicate acts. And you guys using those delusions as collusion/S with interbranch, forging names, switching names. Only 3 branches of government. It's recorded how they use them remotely. They were shown they need to hide how self-value. They had collusion/S with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases originally and still used remotely by worse. That's all rehearsed. Follow mandated law, please. Get me off fake conversation with them because it's also WTNH in their sources and the sources of WFSB, including their interbranch ones. They have predicate acts methods where they're putting collusions into the databases and into the families that work with each science, including the sciences of the law, including the courts and the police departments with fabricated transcripts since founding. /S. This is the same problem at countries A through Z. All these countries are involved with the ones from Wethersfield, the Judicial Branch of Corrections officers, and all sides of cases, collusions with them, even with criminal enterprises when they're not in those cases. Collusions with those same names. Play no game.